So Blue Park has just announced that they're doing a rerun of Isolde's banner, and you can bet your bottom dollar that there's a reason behind why she's getting a rerun, okay? There's a reason behind why Flutterpage, Fatutu, and Isolde just happened to get reruns on patch 3.0 when they've just released patch 3.2 on CN, right? Okay, so I want to talk about Isolde, whether she's worth pulling, what sort of like role she plays, what the Lingering Glow team that you've been hearing about is really, and yeah, that's basically what I wanted to talk about today. It's not going to be edited. So let's get into it. So Beryl is the new limited character in 3.2, right? And she creates what is called the Lingering Glow team. I prefer to call it Afterglow because it's so much easier to say, but it is what it is. And before I start to cough and stuff, just excuse me because I'm a little bit sick. But I just wanted to showcase what this team's about and whether you should be pulling on her or not, or at least describe the mechanics in a proficient enough way that you kind of get an understanding of what they are. So this is my team at the moment on this particular CN account. This is this character has P5, but I haven't actually activated it because that's for another test later on. But we have Potato Side Cubes, Resonance 5 for 2-2, and Flutterpage, so they're actually going to be crushed for this fight, I'm pretty sure. Unless I play extremely defensively, they're just going to get destroyed. But we're just talking about Isolde and Beryl for the time being. So what is Beryl? Beryl is a follow-up attack character. At her core, she's just a follow-up attack unit. Anything she does, you can just think, oh, the whole purpose behind her is to do a couple of follow-up attacks, right? And that might not seem like much, but because the Lingering Glow gauge and how it works and how it's generated is it's pretty intricate. And let me just say that she's on par with current Nautica and current well, not current, but she exceeds current Lucy in terms of damage, but she falls slightly short behind Corvus, right? So how she works is that we choose crystals, right? At P0 you only have 2 crystal slots. At P2 you get one more, I believe, and then at P5 you get another one, or it might be at P4, I forget. So the thing is that we choose either blue, purple, or green, right? Blue is basically, she does an extra like mini follow-up attack. That's why you see a lot of like any sort of like gameplay that you've seen, you might see her attack twice, right? She looks really cool, but that she usually just does one. It does that damage once, but because if you have blues, she'll do another follow-up, okay? So the chance to proc that follow-up increases by 33% every time you have a blue crystal, right? The purple crystal is a crystal that allows your teammates to generate the resource or the debuff that or to be able to stack the debuff that Beryl puts on enemies called Halo. And what Halo does is essentially generates more Lingering Glow for herself. So this is another way, but the core premise behind purple crystals is that it's part of a ramp up structure, right? So the higher your overall Lingering Glow value is, the more damage or more bonuses you'll get if you're using purple crystals, right? That's not the same with blue crystals per se. Blue crystals is more focused on just doing as much follow-up attacks as you possibly can, while relying on a support like Isolde and Flutter Page to help with bringing up the additional multipliers to get to that point, right? And then we have green. So green is actually a pretty unique crystal set, which doesn't get a lot of limelight. It's currently the worst performing crystal, but it essentially, what it can do is it can turn Beryl into like a pseudo support for the rank up team. And by that, I mean, if you have greens, then any rank 2 and 3 skills that your like Marcus or your Argus might be throwing, they also generate Halo. But also, and more importantly, all of these cards, right? If you use double blue or if you use double purple, they all generate a versatility card on the next round, at the start of the round. So blue will generate a blue card, and that essentially lowers the barrier of, or lowers the amount of lingering glow that you need in order to proc her follow-up attack. Remember, Beryl is purely just think about her as doing additional attacks. She doesn't whip nothing, she doesn't do any damage, she just does a follow-up attack, right? None of her skills do anything else other than focusing on the follow-up aspect. So, blue generates a card that reduces the amount of lingering glow you need to generate before you do a follow-up attack, right? It's very good in that regard. Think about, I'm so sorry. Think about Nautica's Mouth of the Mother skill, right? Where as you're generating Blood Tithe, Nautica suddenly like crushes enemies out of the blue, right? That's kind of what Beryl is all about, right? But it's just called Destined Doom, right? I think that's what it's called. So anyway, blue cards, more follow-up, reduces the ceiling. Purple card is a little different, right? It's actually kind of like the worst card, I believe. In my opinion, it kind of sucks. Because what it does, well, no, it doesn't suck, but it's basically a carbon copy of her S2 skill, which is her buff, and it gives a buff called Vision, right? And Vision is basically a flat reduction on the amount of lingering glow that you need before you do a follow-up attack, right? I talked about blue, but blue stacks on top of the S2, making it even quicker for her to do more follow-up attacks. But the thing is, the ramping up potential for purple is so insane that purple actually outscales blue in longer fights, and especially when you have higher portrait levels, okay? And then green is, green's versatility card is actually insane. So it kind of turns her into a pseudo support, because whatever cards are placed, placed before placed after the versatility card, they rank up, right? So say that you're using 2 rank 1 cards, kind of not expecting to do much of anything, but then you have the green versatility card in front of it, then you're going to start to hit like a truck, right? So it has its very niche use cases, and it's not purely tied to the plant-based team or the rank up team, right? There's a lot more use cases than that for this crystal that just hasn't been explored yet because of how new the character is. So that's Beryl in a nutshell, basically. You just need to know that she operates on a follow-up basis. This debuff skill basically applies that vision debuff onto the enemy, and that's it, right? If she's using blue crystals, then her follow-up attacks also apply it. But because we're using purple crystals, for Tutu and Flutter Page's follow-up attacks, as well as Isolde's follow-up attack, will also create Halo as well, I believe. Yeah. So, really long-winded. Now talking about Isolde and why she's important to this whole mess, right? The problem with Beryl just by herself is that she cannot generate enough lingering glow by herself, right? I think her max potential is, or her average is around 102 lingering glow per round. And in some cases, that's not going to be enough to even proc a follow-up attack that round, right? And there's no guarantee that follow-up attack will even do a lot of damage in the first place without these core supports, but that's besides the point. She's not generating enough. So what Isolde provides is her burn debuff also generates additional lingering glow. One of the biggest weaknesses of the lingering glow team right now is that they just don't generate enough, even with the most optimal loadout, that is the 2/2 Flutter Page and Isolde. They just don't generate enough, right? So number one reason why Isolde is required in this team is because she applies the burn debuff on everything, right? This is part of her euphoria. She just jumps into battle. Everything is ignited. And on top of that, she has 3 states, and they're called Prelude, Interlude, and Finale, right? Over here. And they all apply a buff. You can see it has number 3 on it, right? It's called Pre-Ignition on our version. Okay. So what this allows you to do is when you attack, or when you do a follow-up attack, it also applies burn. So the potential in why we choose this team is purely because not only is Flutter Page the best follow-up attack support in the game, but you know, Fatutu does an insane amount of follow-up attacks. So that's the reason why we use these 2 characters, right? Because of pre-ignition. Okay, and moving on to the Euphoria, okay? Desired Freedom, which is her debuff skill, has been changed to decrease both reality defense and mental defense, okay? So, sorry. Beryl is a mental DPS. So, without this debuff, including mental defense, I guess there would be more wiggle room in terms of who the other sub DPS or sub support would be. But she does provide a mental defense shred as well as the basic crit defense on top of that, right? So that's her number 1, tier 1 Euphoria. Her ult no longer grants the buffs. Okay, so the ult doesn't grant any buffs, but it still does for every excess stack of burn on the main target, Intermezzo's incantation might is increased. It's not her personal damage doesn't really matter in this regard, right? We're using her for her utility. Her damage is great, all things considered, but it's also a ramp based damage. So after like 5 turns, you see like a big burst, but that's, you know, it is what it is. And importantly, when she enters Interlude, right? Interlude is when she has 15 stacks of burn, right? At the end of the round, the amount of burn is transferred as like a perma buff, I believe, for Isolde. And when she has 15 stacks of it, she enters the Interlude status, right? And she gives everybody a buff called Asia Katura. I don't know how that is pronounced. And I'm progressively getting hoarser and hoarser, so bear with me. This is actually mistranslated on Pridewin. It gives an 18% damage increase to everybody, right? And this just applies at the start of every round, okay? And then when she goes into her finale state, which is at 40 stacks of burn, she grants Appoggiatura. I don't even want to say that word. But okay. It gives the same amount of damage dealt increase. So it overrides Asia Katura. But then more importantly, this is what's important. For every 1 point of Lingering Glow, additionally increase damage dealt by 0.3%. So remember, I talked about purple crystals being a ramp type of crystal set, right? Crystal loadout. So it's very easy to get to 300 points of Lingering Glow and retain that amount. So she's gonna have, when she has her full stacks going, she's gonna have 108% buff, which is damage dealt buff, which is quite insane if you think about it, right? Okay. Still with me, I hope. So her tier 3, Intermezzo. So Intermezzo is her follow-up attack, right? At the end of the round, if she's in Interlude, she does that follow-up attack. Interlude, when attacking, for every 1 stack of bone on the target, increase the attack's incantation rate. So this is increased to her personal damage, basically. If Lingering Glow is no less than 300, then attack penetration increases. So again, more increases in damage to her personal follow-up attack. Not what we're looking for, but great, okay? And then tier 4, this is another important one. When attacking, for every 1 point of Lingering Glow, deal an additional 2% reality damage. If Lingering Glow is no less than 150, gain 1 Moxie. So what this means is she becomes a very passive playstyle character. She just sits back, makes everybody do all the follow-up attacks and generate burn stacks, and then she reaps the benefit off of it by just passively generating Moxie. Right? Amazing. And then when she gets to her ult is when she's going to do that big burst through her follow-up attack. Now, the most important part of why she is the core to this Lingering Glow archetype is this last part. Prelude, Interlude, Finale enhancement, right? 5%, 10%, 15% of the Lingering Glow decreased at the start of the round is reaccumulated after the next Intermezzo attack. So, what this basically means is that after Beryl does her follow-up attacks and stuff, at the end of the round, we lose a portion of the Lingering Glow, right? Say that we have 200 and we lose 100, right? We're gonna get 5% or 5 of that or 10 of that or 15 of it, depending on what state she's in, back at the start of the next round, right? So it's an incredible way to preserve, right? It doesn't sound like much, but when you start to lose 150 or 200 or 175 stacks of Lingering Glow, that's when it really just starts to matter a lot, right? And we just have the beginnings of the team, right? These two are the only core team members at the moment. Imagine if these two, the support and the healer, all contribute to either the cap or the generation of Lingering Glow in and of itself, on top of interacting with the burn mechanic. Like, that's going to be an insane amount of generation and loss that she's going to be reapplying back into the total pool that's available. So when that's reapplied, it contributes to that follow-up attack amount, right? We need 150 of these before Beryl, without any buffs whatsoever, we need 150 of it before Beryl can unleash a follow-up attack. So she really is quite a slow character to start with, right? Because she needs Lingering Glow or ways to reduce the Lingering Glow needed in order to actually even start doing anything at all. Okay, that was a mouthful. So you kind of get why she's into role now. Now let's talk about the portraits, right? We've already decided if we're pulling on Beryl, by now you should understand that if you're pulling on Beryl, you're gonna be pulling on Isolde, right? That's going to be another 140 hard cap, or, you know, your expected value of 63 pulls, right? And then you add Beryl on top of that. Like, oh god. 3.2 is going to kill a lot of wallets, let me tell you what. So, her P1, Asia Katura, damage dealt is increased to... Let me just... Oh, God. How do I... Why am I so bad at using this? Okay. Anyway. Asia Katura, damage dealt increased to 25%, up from 18%, right? Pride Wind has it at 8. That is a mistake they need to fix. Apogatura increased to 25 as well, but more importantly, it's 0.4 now instead of 0.3. So the total is going up from 108% when you're in Finale all the way up to 145%, right? When you're in Finale. This is when you have 300 stacks of Afterglow, which is pretty reasonable amount to sustain on Beryl, right? But you have to get to Finale, you have to ramp up to that amount, so it does take a little while to warm up to that. Okay, and then Portrait 2. The burn required for the Insight Prelude to advance to Interlude has been reduced to 8. Okay, so it was 15 before, and now it's 8, which is a massive, massive, massive improvement, right? This is her unedited, her current global version portrait, right? Prelude now advances to 10 instead of, but now it's 8. And then the heat required to advance Interlude to Finale is reduced to 20. So it's no longer 30, it's 20. So if you're sitting on a P2 Isolde, holy, you need to be playing Lingering Glow, right? you are all set basically from the get-go. Okay, so for Desired Freedom, which is her debuff, right? Her mental and reality damage shred, as well as her crit defense shred. It's basically an increase from, what was it, like 15%? Oh, why am I'm slowing down, brother. Okay, it doesn't even state what it is, right? But I think it might be like 15, and it's being bumped up to 25 and 30. Wait, no. That's weird. Reality damage increased to 25 and 30. Oh, I was looking at crit defense, sorry. So crit is going to be a baseline of 35. So rank 2. Yeah, so it's a massive buff all the same. This is where the second part is where a lot of this damage is coming from. But this first part is an incredible piece of quality of life, let me tell you what. To not have to worry about getting to that certain amount before you can do as much burst as possible because you have the Apogiatura buff going. Incredible. Amazing. So the third portrait, the ratio of Afterglow deducted, or Lingering Glow deducted at the start of the round that is reaccumulated into Lingering Glow after the next intermezzo attack is increased to 10, 15, and 20, right? It is at the moment at P0, it is 5, 10, and 15. So it's a 5% overall increase. But because the Afterglow is so scarce and so important to hit that threshold so that Beryl can do the next follow-up attack, it provides such a large increase as well. But bear in mind that this is tested under a P5 Beryl, okay? It's an 8-round P5 Beryl test. I think a couple hundred iterations of the simulation, and it's using the same comp here as well, right? Flutter page and Fatutu. Okay. So that's it for the portraits, right? Let me just see how we're doing on time. 25 minutes already. Okay, so we're not, oh God. I'm not going to showcase the gameplay in and of itself. That'll come later, I guess. I'll try to include a little bit of it in the, or you can just watch other YouTube channels, I guess. In the future retrospective video that I'm doing, or that I'm working on right now. So we're going to talk about the ways in which you can accumulate, or not accumulate, the ways that you can get Isolde in 3.2, right? Because we're worried about whether or not we should be pulling in 3.0, which is like 90 something odd days, right? It's like, yeah, it's like 90 something days before this content even becomes relevant. Okay, so should we be worrying right now? Maybe, but okay. Anyway, she's available in the Ripples on the Water, and this is the total pool that's available right now. So in 3.2, you do not want to be pulling on Calabuana, nor you do not, or Ezra, sorry. 3.3 is going to be Marcus, 3.4 is going to be Villa. So there's really no point unless you're desperate for these two characters or to even make a plant-based team. I'll tell you what, like, plant-based teams and Reveries is the one team that you don't need to worry about quite that much, right? Even though the rank up team does like an insane amount of damage, the alternatives there that you can use and that people do use to cheese Reveries, like Cornbloom and Buddy Fairchild, like they're just so strong and so useful that we're not desperate, right? If I was to pick one character, it would just be Villa, right? It would be Villa, it would be Jessica E2 would be another good one. Hisbeth is another good one. But I would not worry about these two. If you're not close to finishing the rank up team, I think that ship has sailed, right? Because we know that Beryl isn't particularly a rank up based character. She's more focused. Her damage comes from the follow-up aspect of her. The ramping up is through the purple crystals, not through the increased incantation levels. Right? Okay. So, Ripples on the Water is one way to get it. People are going to be tempted in 3.2 to pull for Anjanala as well. Amazing character. But she's also a trap character, okay? She's a trap in every freaking way possible because you're going to be so pull stuffed. Imagine if you're going for P5 Beryl, P3 Isolde, and then you have to pull for Anjanala if you don't have her, or go for her P1. Because her P1, okay, Anjanala's P1 is the single most improvement seen in a portrait level increase in the game right now, okay? That's how important her P1 is in terms of boosting the damage. There's nobody else that has that significant of a single portrait increase in the game. But with that said, she doesn't have a team. She's a floater character. I'll get into this in the future retrospective video, but she's going to be an additional bait that you're going to have to deal with, right? She has no carryover in her banner, right? Much like how Lucy was. And then Boon of the Water, we have Kiparina, we have Fatutu, Flutter Page, we have Mercuria is another good one. And then there's Hisabeth, if you want to cheese Reveries. And I think that's about it. I think the rest are just so-so. So, what have you learnt so far? Okay, oh wait, there's one more source, right? The additional source is through the treble counter. I think I talked about it. So she's gonna be available in the treble counter. You can get multiple copies of her if you have enough of these cassette tapes. But again, she's not a character you need to chase dupes on, right? You've seen the portrait damage improvement. It just is an insane amount of quality of life, and that's it, right? She's there to serve as the burn applicator for everybody else, and then she's also there to transfer that lost lingering glow back into the pool, right? That's all she's there for. So you might not even find all these other things to be that relevant, right? So let's recap the banner structure that's coming up. We have Quran in a couple of days, right? And then we have freaking Robuska, okay? And then we have another must pick, pretty much for a lot of players who are playing either Blood Tithe or they're playing the ultimate archetype, right? Robuska is going to be amazing. And then we have Corvus, insane character. She's actually not just a mains bulletin character anymore. We've learnt that now that her kit is out. I'll go more in depth into that and why that's important. And then we have 3.2, which is going to be Beryl, which a lot of people are going to be pulling on. And then they're going to find out that, I hope they know that Isolde is a core member, and they also need to pull for Isolde in some way, shape, or form. So we have that. We have Beryl, who is tied to Isolde, but we're 90 days out, and you're thinking to yourself, should I be investing into Isolde right now? I don't know, dude, because within those 3 other banners, there's a good chance that, there's not a good chance. There's a random chance that you can spook Isolde as well. And I guess the more portraits you have, the better it is. But you might not necessarily want to do that. You might be throwing away pools that you're going to be desperately needing when it comes to 3.2, right? And the hidden gem of 3.2 that I did not talk about, but I will talk about more in depth, but it is Broom, right? She's going to be the single most broken ass character that we've seen in this game to date. And I'll go more in depth into it. She represents a new level of power creep in the game that we haven't seen before. Okay. And she's a dual archetype, so she can be used in Beryl. She can be used with Corvus. She's mainly a Corvus character, right? If you look at so I think this is it. No. Okay. So if you look here, this basically outlines, like, Blue Puck themselves have defined archetypes, right? This is the Blood Tithe archetype. This is the Afterglow archetype, or Lingering Glow archetype. It's really hard to say. The Dynamo archetype. See here, freaking boom right here, right below the... And then you have the Ultimate archetype, you have the Impromptu archetype, and then you have Floater, Follow-Up Attack characters. So they have their defined lists already. I don't know why. Okay.
The future.
So what was I talking about before this gets even longer than it needs to be?
Once, beneath the Sephiroth's glow,
I don't know. I lost my train of thought. But
now,
you're going to be severely pull-starved. You're going to be stretched in every single way possible. Materials, unilogs, everything, right? So the most I can recommend anybody without Isolde that want to play the Lingering Glow archetype is you throw 10 at max 20. At max 20. Don't go beyond 20, because remember when I talked about Flutter Page, you can go up to 30. Not here. Just go to 20. That's it. Because anything beyond that, you can get her from the ripples on the water banner, guaranteed. Okay. So that's the most important piece of information. 20 pulls Max, if you have about 200 pulls on hand, you're going to be pulling for Kiron. You're going to be pulling for all the other characters coming up. 20 pulls max, and that's it, right? That's when you dip, okay? For anybody lower than 100 pulls, don't even think about it. Don't even entertain this banner. Your current future is undecided, right? It's too early to be putting your eggs into this basket, even though it's doing a lot of damage. You have to understand that this is a character that is very, 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 very expensive, right? Her biggest weakness, right? She does giga damage. She's amazing, but her biggest weakness is that she is a glass cannon, okay? The Beryl glass cannon. Look, she even summoned crystals. So don't commit yourself when you have low amounts of pulls. That's what I want to say, basically. So a bit long-winded again, but I hope that was informative. That gave you an idea of what the Lingering Glow team is all about and whether or not you should be pulling for Isolde. If you're pulling for Isolde, I wish you the best of luck.